I didn't think about owning a home. And like, I think it wasn't until our friend, like Helen bought a house and I was like, oh shoot, like this is happening. And then other people are buying homes. I'm just like, is this something people do?
Yeah. It's like, is this something I want?
I was like, what the hell? Mortgage? Like you guys, all these terms, I have zero idea what it is. But I think now I want it eventually, but I don't think I need a home to feel satisfied with my life. Hello, everyone. As you can see, we are not in our home base studio. We're actually doing this recording in Brooklyn, New York. One of our first recordings here on the East Coast. And Janet has flown out to join me. So really excited to be here. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Mel. I haven't seen you in person, IRL, in like
2 months.
2 months, which is like a long time, but also not that long.
Yeah. But I will say, like, when you came and we started talking, it was like nonstop chatter.
Yeah. It was a lot of catch up.
And then we were tired. I was like, there's so much we have to talk about.
Yeah. And then you're coming back out to LA like next week. Yeah. So
yay.
It's like you never left. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is super cool. We have now, it's like another studio space, which is amazing. Thanks to Spotify for having us use their space. But today's episode, we thought this is kind of like a natural like conversation that we've been having recently. We were just talking about like life, I guess.
I know.
Right?
And expectations.
Yes, life expectations, life milestones. So I want to kind of just think about this in the framework of like going all the way back to when you were growing up. Were there any like fairy tales or media type things that affected maybe how you thought your life would be like when you grew up and became an adult?
That's a really good question. I feel like for the longest time, I'm definitely like, I'm a fan. I fantasize a lot. There's one Disney movie I watch all the time, and that was Cinderella.
I loved Cinderella.
I think maybe, I don't know what about it, but maybe the transformation from like, she's like this like, I don't know, like,
it's a glow-up story.
Maybe that's something I resonate with.
Yeah.
But another thing I watched a lot was I was obsessed with the Olsen twins.
Oh my gosh.
Like, every movie, like I'm not talking about Full House. Like I'm talking about like Holiday in the Sun, Winning London. And I think for me, the Olsen twins, like one, they were trendsetters with fashion and like all that. But they always got the cute guy. You know? And like they always stumble upon these like adventures and like there's a guy there or like one's chasing a guy that's like unrequited love, but she ends up getting with him. So I think in some weird way, like the Olsen twins were something I resonated with. I wanted to have.
Yeah.
Maybe because also at the time I didn't really like, I never got like with my dream guy in high school and things like that. Actually, I shouldn't say that to whoever, if he's listening.
poor ex of Mel.
I want to say you weren't my dream guy, but I don't know. I think when I think about the fantasies I had as a kid or the things I consumed, there were like, a lot of it was related to romance.
Yes.
How about you?
I mean, so I also watched the Olsen twins. A couple years older than you. So I remember growing up, though, it was like way back, maybe closer to their Full House days. I had a neighbor who was in their fan club.
That's insane.
Yeah. And this was the day when they had more like analog things. Well, I guess nowadays they have kind of like PR boxes that they like ship you and stuff, right? But for like a monthly fee, she would get these like signed photos from them every month or like little card thingies or
That's
like
cool.
because they had those like all those like movies of them like traveling to London and going to Paris and stuff like that. So I think I actually resonated more with like the lifestyle of going to different cities and leading this exciting life. For me, the guy and the romance part was like, that was like a side part of the story. I was just like, you get to go to all these places. And I don't quite remember if they like did internships or worked, but that was like my focus growing up was much more like career and like what I would be doing as like that was like my life more than the romance part.
That's actually great context to lead us into this conversation because I feel like already there's different I don't say like expectations or like there's already things that we focus on that's really different.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of like different things that we placed value on. Right.
So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about like, I guess, timelines and expectations then.
Yeah. And like, I think, when we were growing up, like our generation, there was a lot of this dialogue around kind of like, you will like maybe meet your person in college perhaps, or like, right away when you land your job and, they're going to like propose to you in like Paris or like, on vacation in Hawaii and then you'll get married. It'll be perfect and you'll have like a white picket fence house and your perfect 2.5 kids, that whole like statistic. But more and more, there's like a lot of news articles and just general dialogue around our generation. A lot of these like adult life milestones are happening much later, sometimes in out of order or in different orders.
Yep.
And oftentimes people are opting out of them altogether, right? Like they just either don't believe in marriage, they don't want to get married, or they don't want to have kids, or they're like, you know what? I prioritize other things and I don't don't really want to own a home with a white picket fence or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's my changing expectation so far.
Yeah. So, and this is some of the stuff that we've been talking about. So I kind of just want to dive right in.
Dive in, dude.
One thing about me, I cannot handle uncomfortable underwear. Specifically when it comes to bras, underwires are the bane of my existence. You know that the moment I get home, it is the first thing that comes off. Right after shoes, of course. I am not getting my home dirty, but I'm happy to report that I have found a line of bras that are super comfortable. You've probably heard about them by now, Skims. I was so excited to get my hands on the weightless scoop bra. Actually, funny story, when the package came, I opened it with scissors and accidentally cut through one of the straps. Oh, I was so devastated. I had to reorder, but can confirm that it was worth the wait. I have a smaller chest and was looking for a bra that would give me a lift without sacrificing the comfort of a bralette. It has a mesh material that feels like I'm wearing nothing at all, but offers amazing support. If you are a member of the itty bitty titty committee like I am, this bra is for you. Shop Skims bras at skims.com. Now available in 62 sizes, 30A to 46H. If you haven't yet, be sure to let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Like maybe not going back to all the way to when you were like little, but say in your like 20s. So you're like well in adult Mel and you're like in LA, you're figuring out your career, starting to think about dating and things like that. How did you think about, or where did you think your life would be now at your stage? You're like 33, right? Like early mid 30s ish.
Yeah. I think the funny thing is I feel like as you enter your 30s, you forget how old you are.
Yeah.
That's
you
one
start
little
to lose
thing.
track.
I'm 32. Like, you know, you're 33. The only thing I could think about when I was in my 20s is that I knew, like, even though actually when I was really, really young, I knew I wanted to get married in my 30s. So in my 20s, I knew 30s was the era that was going to happen.
That would happen. Yeah.
Now that I'm in my 30s, like at 33, I still think it could happen, but it's happening a little later than I expected.
Oh.
Yeah. The biggest thing I didn't expect to feel in my 30s, and maybe this is just a me thing, but, you know, obviously watching like 13 going on 30 and like you hear all these articles about like women saying like in your 30s, you're in your prime, you're super confident. You don't give a fuck what people think. I don't feel that way at all. Like I remember when we did an episode on this and I was about to turn 30, I was so excited.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like maybe it's because like I'm in this transitional period. I don't feel that at all. Like
you're not feeling like super confident, got my shit together. I know exactly what's happening in my life. Yeah.
I didn't think confidence could waver in your 30s like this. I didn't think transitions and like feeling a little bit like lost and like starting a new chapter can happen. So I think that's the biggest thing I didn't expect to feel in my 30s. Like I expected to feel that in my 20s, but not now.
Yeah.
So it's like a mental thing.
Yeah, that's a big, I definitely could see that. Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, I'm on the later half of my 30s, so I'm kind of looking at this more a bit in hindsight. I feel like you're like entering it and you're like well in it in the 30s right now. Yeah. And I'm at the kind of wrapping up my 30s, looking ahead to the next decade of like 40. My 40s.
That's crazy.
It is. Cool. Yeah. And the funny thing is I hear the same dialogue where everyone's like, everything's great in your 30s. And I hear like for women, it's like even better in your 40s. But yeah, I actually think I'm like, when I was in my 20s, I think I also just assumed that Janet in her 30s, that's like when you get married, have kids, and do all of that, right? And even in my career, I was like in my 20s in so much shift, but I kind of just assumed by 30s, like I would have it figured out and stabilized. I just thought that's when all the
cruising,
big,
right?
Yeah, when that's when all the big life things happen. And now that I'm like kind of closing out the chapter of my 30s, I can confirm it could potentially be a harder decade than your 20s.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess hard in a different way, right? But like to your point, if you are someone who's going through change, whether you like move to a different city, enter a new relationship, make up your mind about, the fact that you maybe are going to opt out of like having a home or having kids, like those are big decisions that kind of happen in your like 30s, sometimes in your 30, like late 30s, right?
You know, actually why? I think it makes a lot of sense because I feel like typically in your 20s, you're like kind of starting your career. A lot of my friends now in their 30s are changing their careers. Yeah. Because they've been doing it for like, 5 to 7 years. You're like, you know what? I don't think this is actually what I wanted to do. Yeah. So they're going to boot camps and, just shifting things around. So and I think another thing that just in the general topic like 20s versus 30s is that I feel in your 20s, you had this idea of your 30s, but that's it. You just had the idea. But once you're living it, like a whole set of challenges arise. You're like, cool, now I'm here. Now I'm living it. And living it is just so different than your expectation. Yeah. Because you're like going through the motions, your feelings are there. And actually, that's one thing I was telling my boyfriend, Ray. I was like, just with this move in general in New York, I was like, I trained myself to be like, you're gonna feel sad some days. You're gonna expect to feel kind of rocky, but the expectation is so different when you're like, your emotions are like, you're feeling it day to day. It's much more intense.
That's a good point. I think you can have an idea of something, so you know it in your mind, but when you experience it, then feelings get involved.
Oh yeah.
And feelings are hard.
They're so hard.
They make everything a lot more challenging to work through. Even though you might know in your head, like, this is the right answer or this is the thing I should do, getting yourself to do it or to even maybe like, I don't know, be okay with changing your mind. If you change your mind, like that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
If you're a longtime listener, you know that we are longtime users and fans of Shopify. They have been with us through all of our merch collection releases. Before Shopify, we had no way to offer physical products to our ABG community. No way for you all to own a little piece of ABG for yourself. Because of Shopify, we've been able to share ABG with you all in a more tangible way. And for that, we are ever grateful. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. The secret's out. It's no secret. Businesses that want to grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ABG, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ABG to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/ABG.
So one thing you mentioned within this realm of like things you expected is marriage.
Yeah.
And I think we both kind of mentioned like marriage is something we expect to happen in our 30s. Is that changing for you with what you thought it would be in your 20s? Like, or like, what is your thoughts on marriage now compared to your 20s?
Yeah. So my 20s, I was not even thinking about marriage.
Really?
I was like, that's a Janet in her 30s or beyond problem. I actively actually, when I was like dating people, told them, like I verbally said, was like, I'm not looking for something serious because I was so focused on my career. And my 20s were full of like shifting. Like I moved my life to New York City and then to Miami and back to LA, like all over the place. So like thinking about my life partner was like the last thing on my mind. I was like, that's a later problem.
Interesting. Okay.
And then once I hit my early 30s, though, that's when I was like, oh, actually, now that I feel more settled in my career, I think that's, when I hit my early 30s is like more settled in my career. So I was like, I'm ready to like, much more open to the idea of like meeting someone and having a serious relationship. But then after this more recent breakup and now being in like the latter half of my 30s, my perception or my perspective on marriage now is completely like shifted. And I haven't settled on a conclusion yet. All I know now is that like I am more open and I resonate more with a lot of people who talk about having very significant love and connection in their life that is not necessarily through a romantic partner. If that makes sense.
Or like a friend or a pet?
Yeah. Or I mean, it's like I have like, I feel a lot closer to my girlfriends who are like in their like late 30s or early 40s and are single. Or like just understanding the idea that there are different ways that you could date someone. And maybe like I had like a kind of a friend of a friend who has been in a relationship for over 10 years now with her partner. They're in their late 30s. They have no plan to get married, no plan to have kids. They both live in their own apartments in New York. And they,
nice.
So I'm like, oh, that is a format of life that maybe that is like, I don't know that that's something I want, but I'm much more open to that idea.
I see.
If it makes sense, I think the idea of the traditional find a romantic partner, get married, have kids now. I'm kind of like, you know what? I don't know if that is what I'm looking for anymore. And I kind of want to just be open to like, so I'm a little bit like TBD in the marriage department at the moment.
Wait, side note though, are you someone that do you care about being married before having children, or you're okay?
I think at this point I'm okay with it being out of order.
Okay. This is
I want a commitment from the partner, or I don't know. It's so hard I think it will depend once it happens.
Yeah.
But at this point, kind of like the logic of needing to be married, like I'm kind of like okay with that not necessarily being the case. Yeah.
This is interesting for me. I feel like I'm also learning as we're hearing about like her answers. I think for me, I actually always wanted to be in a serious relationship. Like I always wanted that type of thing. Like in high school, I dated long term. Like in college, I never was like, I never said I'm looking for something casual.
Yeah.
I think there's one time I said it, but I didn't mean it. Like, I was like, no, I really like it. Yeah. So I've always wanted something serious. All my 20s. I think that's why I was so like, I didn't date that much in my 20s because I didn't think anyone else like, I think people who are casual with dating in their 20s, they're not looking for anything serious.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just happen upon it.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, serious relationship. So all the guys I like wanted to swipe on or met, I was like, I don't like see the.
Oh, if you didn't see a potential, you're like, I'm not even going to date you.
Yeah, which I think in some ways like closed me off to a lot of opportunities to like meet men. I think in my 20s, and even before that, like I always fantasize about having a wedding, and I know that's something I still want. I know a lot of people's expectations of having a wedding has changed because they want to put it into a house. I will say I'm still wedding before a house.
Yeah.
I don't care about homeowning as much as like the wedding. I know that's like so okay, Mel, it's a one day thing, but I grew up.
I think it makes sense. A lot of like what you grew up around and your values and what you prioritize.
Yeah. So I think there's that. The other thing that's shifted for me a little bit is that I focus a lot on the wedding component as like a kid in my 20s, but now in a serious relationship in my 30s, I'm not focusing on. The idea of an actual marriage is coming into play now. Like,
right,
it's not just a party.
Yeah,
it's like a commitment to a person. And so I think that reality is becoming more and more real. Like, me saying I do to you is like life and like a marriage and it's a commitment. So I think that's like the shift for me. Little things I feel like that are the same is that, again, I want the wedding. I want like, there's a thing in Taiwan that you do when you get engaged or get married. You take studio photos.
Yeah.
And it's not as popular anymore, but these little like traditional things I still want to have when I get married that I still want to do when that happens. For marriage right now, I feel like, to be honest, at 33, like I said, I wanted to get married in my 30s. I actually thought 33 would be the year. Like 32, 33, like my early 30s. But now that I'm inching closer to my mid 30s, I'm just like, okay, like, so when's it happening? But at the same time, I'm also recognizing that I don't like you have to be mentally ready for that engagement.
Yeah.
Ready for that next step. So even though I want it, if I'm not there, I don't think I don't want it now, you know?
How do you feel in terms of?
Yeah, it's so funny. So speaking of the timeline, which we're talking about, I had like a timeline discussion with Ray.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so in terms of marriage, I feel like right now, this is our first year living together and we're already going through like a lot of learnings as a couple. Change. I don't feel ready at all this year. I think I need this year, maybe end of next year. I said maybe end of next year that I feel ready to say yes to a proposal.
Yeah.
And then another thing that has changed for me is the timeline for me has gotten shorter in terms of like, I think right now at 33 and with a serious partner, I am heavily considering having a child. That I'm just like, I do want to get married before I have a kid. I think I'll revisit this down the line if like I'm getting closer to like an age. I'm like, I just need to start trying. But I feel like before I used to say, I want to be married to my partner and I want to have years with just me and you.
Yeah.
But now at 33, I don't think I have the years of just me and you before starting a family. So I think now I told Ray, I was like, we need to start immediately after we get married. Like,
oh my, Ray.
Like honeymoon, let's go. You know, I'm sorry. It is what it is. Like I feel, because I just hear a lot of like from our friends who are like having child, they're like, oh yeah, like you should earlier the better. And I'm just like, first, before I'd be like, no, it's okay. But now I'm just like, I feel the pressure.
Yeah.
So marriage, I think just is getting like tighter. Like, I see. I want it to happen like.
So you're like pushing back the timeline for proposal and marriage, but when that happens, then it's like everything's going to go and things are going to happen more quickly.
I think so. So I think that's something I didn't really think about when I was younger, but now it's like happening.
Yeah. Listening on Audible helps your imagination soar. Whether you listen to stories, motivation, expert advice, any genre you love, you can be inspired to imagine new worlds, new possibilities, new ways of thinking. When you listen on Audible, it can lead to positive changes in your mood, your habits, and ultimately your overall well-being. I've been listening to The Hidden Power of the 5 Hearts by Kimberly Snyder, a holistic wellness expert, nutritionist, and meditation teacher whom I've been following for years. I am a fan of health, wellness, spirituality, and self-development, but Audible has so many other genres. You can find the genres you love or discover new ones with the best selection of audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals all in one app. Audible makes it easy to be inspired and entertained as part of your daily routine without needing to set aside extra time. There are so many good books out there nowadays, it's just so hard to keep up. I appreciate Audible because I can listen while I'm doing other things. I listen when I'm in my car, waiting through LA traffic, when I go for walks or runs, and I have it on in the background when I'm making dinner. There is more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days with your first audiobook included. Visit audible.com/ABG or text ABG to 500-500. That's audible.com/ABG or text ABG to 500-500. I mean, I think on my end, when it comes to kids, I think when I was in my 20s, and once again, that's a Janet in her 30s problem.
Oh, I see.
I thought, sure, I'll have kids maybe. Actually, no. Beginning of my 20s, I was actively like, once again, I don't know if like marriage and kids are for me. And then once I inched in towards like my 30s and like my cousin started having kids, the first blood-related like child.
Alana, yeah.
Then I was like, oh, ovaries.
Yeah,
I want a baby. But once again, it was like, that'll happen in a couple of years. And sure, I'll have like 2 kids. And mostly it was just, it's like, because you want the one kid to have like someone to play with, right? So once again, it's like narratives of things that I've heard from other people, but it wasn't something that I necessarily was like, this is something I need and I definitely want. It was like, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure, in the future.
Like for kids, right?
Yeah, for kids. And then, of course, I shared I froze my eggs when I was like in my like later 30s. And now, having some distance from like a pretty big breakup, I'm kind of like, you know what? If I do have kids, it will happen in my 40s. And if it's in my early 40s, then like that's kind of something I'm becoming okay with. And I have friends who like have coworkers and friends that had kids well into their 40s. And so I'm like, I know it's possible. And like I said, it's like something that I like maybe want, but I'm not so like that is not the thing I need to feel fulfilled in life.
That's interesting.
So
I mean, that's good.
So it's like, well, I'm probably going to be, if I do have kids, I will be one of those like mom in her 40s with an infant. So.
I mean, you look great.
Thank you.
For kids, for me, this is the biggest shift I felt is that I always liked, I didn't mind kids and babies. I liked playing with them as a kid. I'm the eldest of my family. So like I took care of my cousins. But in my 20s, I wasn't really surrounded by babies. Yeah. Until like late 20s where like, I don't know like how it happened, but like slowly I more babies started arriving in my life. Yeah. And then the ovary thing started happening. I'm just like, ooh, like I'm starting to really enjoy being around this child. I'm just like, this is it's just, you can't explain this change that happens, but just something happens in you.
It's biological.
It's kind of crazy.
There's like hormones involved. I don't know.
I know. But I think now I feel it so intensely in my 30s. Like right now.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a baby, a child, a toddler, I'm always smiling at them. I want to play with them. And I just feel like something just kicked in for me that like, even on the airplane when a baby's like crying or whatever, I'm just like, there's so much like understanding, like it's hard taking care of a child. Yeah. It's like you just feel this like, I don't know, something just clicked. And I think also now with Helen having a baby, and I'm also really close with like Ray's niece, I always want to see photos of them. I want to like FaceTime them. I feel like I want to be around them. And it's funny because even before Helen's son, I haven't like really taken care of a child. We talked about it too. Yeah. But once he was born, something just turned on for me. Like when I was watching, I would go over just to play with him and, and she'd like, oh, do you mind watching? Like take a quick shower? Yeah. But like this parental nurturing mode just like turned on for me. And it's just like, whoa, that I feel like so deep. Like I really, really want a child. Yeah. And I think for me now in my 30s, wanting a child also comes with a lot of pressure and a little bit of pain. Yeah. Because I don't know if you feel this way, but like now hitting my mid 30s, like they say 35 is like a geriatric pregnancy. Yeah. And I'm getting worried that I'm going to be in that phase. And the other fear I'm feeling is that a lot of my friends right now are at the age of they're trying to have a kid, their first or their second. And a lot of them are running into issues, whether it's taking a long time to conceive or they're having miscarriages. Yeah. Like I know Helen shared her story and that was like, it just hearing it and knowing about it, it's just really heartbreaking for me. Yeah. And then also hearing that like, she was not the only friend that happened around the same time. I think hearing that causes a lot of fear in me that I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so afraid that I'm going to run into these issues. And I would look at Ray, I'm like, I'm really afraid. Yeah. Because not having a child for me is like devastating. And then so I'm like already kind of, in some weird, I'm already preparing myself for a loss. Man. Or like just anticipating something will happen. Yeah. And so I think with that, I'm kind of like, hey, dude, like what's going on with our timeline? Because for me, it's like different because I have someone. I'm just like, I have you, but like I also want this other thing. But like,
let's put the pieces together and figure out how to.
Like, does it make sense for us to be trying right now? Like, You know,
Would you, I mean, you still prefer to be married before trying for kids.
Yeah.
Is there a world in which you could see that you'd be okay with having kids before marriage?
Yeah. So I think that's another thing I shifted from in my 30s. Like, you know, you said, like, you know, you don't know, like, you're in your 40s and stuff. I think for me, I think if we're at the age, let's say I'm 35, I literally told him, I said, we're trying regardless. And I don't care if I'm married or not at that point. 35, and maybe this is putting a lot of pressure because Ray's big on, like, I don't know where we're going to be. But I'm just like, I get it, but I really need this to happen for myself. Like, like that sounds so selfish, but just to start a family. So 35 is the year I told him, like, we're going to be trying. Yeah. Regardless of ring on my finger or not.
Yeah. Do you think about, like, number of kids?
Yeah, we want to.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think I'm okay. Like, honestly, if I have just one, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we just have a dog. Yeah. I don't really know. I just think at least I want one child.
To all my wonderful parents and caregivers out there, let's talk about those unforgettable moments with your little ones. The first steps, the giggles, the boundless energy. But let's be real, with a growing and wild child, those moments can also mean unexpected messes, which is why I'm excited to share something that's been a lifesaver for us, Pampers Cruisers 360. Pampers Cruisers 360 is the must-have baby-proof diaper. These slide on like a pair of pants, unlike ordinary diapers with tabs or tapes that your escape artist can rip off. And trust me, thanks to its 360-degree stretchy waistband, it can help save you from some serious messes and keep your baby comfy. With up to 100% leak-proof protection, you can let your little one explore and play. And when it's time for a change, it's as easy as ripping the sides, rolling it up with a disposable tape on the back, and you're done. Simple as that. Try Pampers Cruisers 360 with the new Pampers Free and Gentle wipes for healthy baby skin. They're made from 100% plant-based cloth that grips the mess. With Free and Gentle, mess meets its match. Let your little one live wild and mess-free because every adventure should end in smiles, not cleanups. For trusted protection, trust Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand.
Well, when you think about this family that you have with Ray and the little one, maybe a dog, maybe another baby, like, where do you envision living?
I think that's the biggest shift for my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
In my 20s, I wanted to be in Irvine.
Yeah, I remember that. Mel was like OC girl. Yeah.
Right? I wanted to be in the perfect cookie cutter suburban life where parking lots are everywhere and vast. And I think the closer and closer I'm getting to my 30s, like, I love Irvine still. I love Orange County. But I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready for that suburban life quite yet.
Yeah.
And now that we're in New York, I'm kind of like, why don't we have our first kid in New York?
Yeah.
You know, as much as, like, because we talk about, like, oh, like, but our families are in California and, like, oh, I'm doing the math. I'm like, my mom will be retired by then and she could come and help us.
Yeah.
But I'm now, like, in New York, it's like a different, I'm like looking outside the window, but, like, it's just different because I'm meeting people now that are having children in New York and it's just a different vibe that I kind of enjoy. It's harder in some ways, but
it's a possibility, right? And you see it being demonstrated.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I also feel like maybe it's just something as a California grown kid. I think the kids that grow up in New York, I'm like, you just feel a different flavor. And I kind of like it. So I don't know. Maybe that's something I kind of want, but how about you?
Well, I think I was going to think that's a good segue into the conversation of thinking about home ownership, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's like another big thing that people kind of like a checklist or a thing that you want, that you think that you'll achieve in your like 20s or 30s. How do you think about like home ownership now?
I never thought about it. Like, growing up, I never thought about owning a home. Yeah. I think my mom and my family never emphasized that for me at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's because my house right now in the Bay is a house I was born and raised in. We never left. So I think my parents never thought about like upgrading the house or moving. That was never instilled in my brother and I. And I think in my 20s, like, career. But I don't know why I didn't think about owning a home. And like, I think it wasn't until our friend, like, Helen bought a house and I was like, oh shoot, like, this is happening. And then other people are buying homes. I'm just like, is this something people do?
Yeah. It's like, is this something I want?
I was like, what the hell? Mortgage? Like, you guys, all these terms, I have zero idea what it is. But I think now I want it eventually, but I don't think I need a home to feel satisfied with my life. The other thing that kind of changed for me is that I was so set on, like, I ideally still want to buy a house in California. Like, I want to be back in LA to own a house. And that will be my forever home. But I think now, being the fact that we uprooted our life and moved to New York, I'm kind of open to, like, I was like, oh my God, look how much cheaper Vegas homes are.
Yeah. Property is expensive in California.
California's ridiculous. So I think for me, where might be changing for me. I still want LA as my prime.
Yeah.
But it's just so expensive. I'm like, maybe it's just not going to happen now.
Yeah.
I think before too, people always thought they'll own a home when they had their first child. I don't think that anymore. I don't think I could, to be honest, I can't afford both.
Right. Yeah. That's a very practical conversation. And like when you're saying you're thinking through like timelines and things, that's something you were having to think about, right? Like what is your priority between all those things? And for you, it's like kids and marriage, right?
And actually, to jump back to the wedding thing, that relates to the housing. So I think in my 30s, I realized like, okay, I'm not meeting my partner yet. It's like early 30s. I decided to save for my wedding for myself. Without a partner. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I know this is something I want. I'll start saving. So now, I think this year I was like, okay, I have a partner now. I guess I should start saving for a house. And I'm starting so late to the game too that I feel like, at 33, I'm finally saving for a home.
I mean, I think like to your point though, it depends on like if that's not something that you need right away and you prioritize like the wedding to happen first, then maybe that's okay.
The other thing that I find weird or interesting is like, because when it's like you're setting up your investment account like for these funds. They ask you what's your goal for years? And I had put my goal for 40s to own a home. So maybe I'll be a homeowner later in life. So just like your expectation for this kind of changes.
Yeah, most definitely.
You owned your condo. How do you feel?
I have a condo, and I think that maybe sometimes like the idea also growing up, because we grew up in a home, right? And then it's like you start a family, it's like there was a little bit of that type of like dialogue in my head. And my condo was like in my 30s, and as I was in my mid 30s pursuing, I was like looking for a partner and then also saving up for like a house. But once again, after that breakup, I feel like everything has shifted, and I'm like, what? Like, does it make sense for me to prioritize my finances in this direction towards this life that like, do I even want anymore? Or does it make sense that it's happening? So I've no longer like, I like the thing that I'm like saving towards, yes, I would like a home someday, but it doesn't need to happen in the next couple of years. And it probably, if it happens in my 40s and whatever makes sense. But yeah, I think a lot of just being a non-married woman in her late 30s has shifted my perspective of like what I want and when I want it in my life. And I'm actually feeling very like comfortable with that.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. So I think a big thing or a big sector of your life places a lot of emphasis on is career. Because I think when you enter your 20s, career is your main focus, right?
Yeah.
And now in your 30s, how has it changed for you in terms of because you seem like you've been career driven since like
it's forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in my 20s, I was all about my career, and I was hyper focused on finding like the perfect profession, right? And I've talked about this on so many previous episodes where I was like, it needed to be the thing that would be fulfilling to me. I needed to be good at it. I needed to make a lot of money. I needed to have a good reputation. All of these like probably unrealistic expectations when you think about it.
Yeah.
But that was like my hyper focus was on finding the one perfect thing. And then in my 30s, I started to really just understand and accept that I am the kind of person who likes to do a lot of different things. And I realized that my idea of finding this perfect thing was probably influenced by our generation. I don't know if it's like cultural, but also just like generationally, like this idea that you become a specialist, right? Because our parents, like you find one thing, you study it, you get really, really good at it, and then you just do that forever. And that's how I was thinking about my career. And then once I became in my 30s and I went out into the workforce, and I think also just generationally, people nowadays, like in our age group, like people change jobs and professions all the time, right? The way that like technology and the economy is like impacting, everyone's like shifting often. And so I've really started to shift my mind that like I can be more of a generalist, and perhaps my strength is in being one of these people that I think there's a term they call being a 0 to 1 person. So you're someone who versus like a 1 to 100 scaling type person, right? Like the type of skill set and the type of focus is very different when you're someone who's like you're entering into something that's brand new, that is totally foreign, and are you able to kind of like build something around that and get something constructed? And I think that's like more and more I'm realizing that's my strength is like I'm someone who's a little bit more of a chameleon. I can go into different industries and kind of blend and help take something from like concept to the first thing versus being someone who then takes something once it's built and then scales it.
I see.
And so I think I've just in my career like realized and accepted that, that I'm just someone who changes things a lot. And that's okay.
Yeah. You did bounce around a lot. But I think it's kind of cool because I feel you're also just like willing and like you have enough courage to like just like change.
Yeah,
at any moment, you know?
I mean, it doesn't make it easier. I mean, I guess it does. The more changes you make, a little bit easier, right? But still, but yeah, and that's I think for me how my relationship with my career has changed. How about you? Have you thought about, you know, how did you think about career in your 20s versus now?
In my 20s, especially my early 20s, especially my early 20s, I was big on like, you have to pursue your passion. And I was like, people who chase money like are like just, I think I just, to be honest, I felt like people who pursue passion was like much better than people who just pursue finances. And that's why I literally like found jobs that didn't pay, you know? But I think at that time I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm young. Like I have support. Like it's fine for me to do that. And I think I was really fortunate that I did land a lot of my like dream jobs, like internship with Wong Fu. That was more like, okay, this is a life that I can actually live. And then I pursued media this whole time. And I will say media is still something I'm very passionate about and I really enjoy. But yeah, passion, all of that. Even ABG. We launched ABG when I was 26.
Yeah.
And so that was just like the theme of 20s is pursuing your passion, you know? Now in my 30s, I understand why people pursue a job that pays really well. Because now that in my 30s, reality is knocking on my door.
Yeah.
You know, like the things I didn't save up for in my 20s is coming in real hot now. You know, because I think in my 20s, I was okay taking like lower paying jobs for things that I wanted to explore. And I don't regret that. But I think there are moments I'm just like, oh, I don't have that big of a safety net, you know, to pursue passion for so long. I don't have money for a house. Yeah. You know, and it's just like, I think also now in the 30s, the things we talked about previously are the things I wanted in my 30s, like family, you know, marriage or wedding, all this stuff that now in my 30s, I'm like noting how much these things cost. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, did I prepare myself for this? Like I just had the idea of it, but I didn't think about the realistic logistics of this. So now in my 30s, I do understand and can see why people are pursuing a job that's kind of mixed, like a job that you're interested in that builds up your skills, but also pays really well. Yeah. And I think before my 20s, I'm just like, F that, like pursue your passion, go hard on that, grind. Yeah. And now in my 30s, I'm just like, I don't have to grind. Like grinding's tiring. Yeah. And it's funny because like I see a lot about my mom, like how she lives her life. And I understand why there's so much peace with her now. Because like, it's funny because entering my 20s, my mom and I clashed because she's like, why are you pursuing a job with no money? Yeah, like, why are you doing this? And I was like, you don't understand. My heart's in this, da-da-da-da-da. And then she understood slowly. But I did a recent episode with her on my mini show and I asked her, like, what are your goals in life? She goes, and this is like not the best answer for me personally. She's like, I don't have big goals. She goes, because I see every day as like a blessing. Oh, every day. It's a good perspective. I'm happy going to a job every day. I love routine and I have these trips to look forward to. And she's like, she's at peace because she's accepting this is her reality. Yeah. But she's happy with it. And I think for me, it's just like, I understand why a slower life can be nice. Yeah. Because you're not constantly running and chasing after something. Yeah. And so for me in my 30s, like it's about finding that balance again. Because I feel like we grinded pretty hard with ABG. Yeah. And it's great, but I think now it's just like trying to recalibrate. Like now with all my needs in my 30s, what do I need for my career to feel like these are other passions or these are other dreams that I've always had. How can I get those dreams now? Yeah. And part of it is a little bit about slowing down a bit. And finding balance. And we were talking about this yesterday, but I think I came to the conclusion that I'm like someone that truly works to live. And I do enjoy sitting down on the couch and having a good show or having a conversation with a friend. Yeah. I don't want to be working till 10 p.m. every night on the weekends. And it's tiring. And I get it. It happens sometimes. But I think that grind hustler mentality in my 20s that I was so about and take so much pride in. Yeah. I'm kind of just shedding that in my 30s. Like, I don't really want that anymore. Yeah. Because you also are seeing the reality of like having a family, having kids. I don't know for myself if I could actually sustain that. Right. You know? Yeah. Other people, I see other entrepreneurs doing it. And I'm like, good for you. Right. But I'm not built that way. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Those are very powerful realizations to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see I'm curious. It's funny now as we're talking about our 30s, or for me 30s, and like you're about to enter your 40s. Like the things we're talking about now, I wonder how it's going to come into play or the fruition of these thoughts in this conversation.
Me too. Right? Are there any things that happened in your 30s that you actually, when you were younger, thought maybe wouldn't happen until much later in life?
I think two things. One, I didn't think I'd move to New York.
Yeah, I did not see that coming for you.
I didn't see it coming. I never was that girl that was like, oh my God, New York City. Like
You were always LA.
I was LA.
Yeah,
I was like LA ride or die.
Yeah.
To be honest, I still see myself ending up in LA.
Yeah.
But New York was never ever on the list. But I think sometimes, let's say you have a passion or a dream, but what happens when you get there? You know? And I think that's what happened with LA. I got there, I did it. But now what? Was like the biggest question for me because I felt life was monotonous. Yeah. Even though LA is still probably the end goal, I think I need to stimulate myself and still feel like I'm growing in other ways. So New York kind of came along with that too. The other thing that happened, I will say mostly in my late 20s and I guess strictly in my 30s, is I never thought ABG would happen. Yeah. I always thought I would have worked for a creator that I was very big, like I was a fan of, worked for a big media company, and I'd be so happy with that. And probably today I still would be happy with working with like a Disney or things like that. But having ABG come, and I forget that I was like only 26 when we started this, and I'm like still like the baby. Yeah. And I think I used to just say, oh, I'm the baby of the group, but just reflecting on owning this business or owning this thing, it's really challenging, I'll say. But in a lot of ways, like this is something I know that I'm like so proud of. You know, I'm gonna be 90, be like, when I was 20, this is like I created something with my best friends, and like we had such a good team with us, and we were talking about the Spotify yesterday. But I think this is something I'm like forever proud of that I thought would happen. Like we are year 7 now.
That's crazy.
And to be an entity that's still here, I think that's something we don't do enough is like to take account that in some ways we did make some impact with ABG.
Oh, we made a lot. I would say, I would say definitely for sure.
So I think for me, it's like to be this living entity that did something. Yeah. Makes me really
It's like beyond
proud.
What you would have imagined you would do.
Like I hope that, knock on wood, that when I die, that this is still something that people remember. Yeah. You know? Aww. So that's what I think about.
Yeah. I often think that is how ABG was for me as well. I think when I was going through all of my different career shifts, I finally landed in UX design, and I was like, okay, this is the thing that I'll do. And maybe I'll shift again, but I thought I would shift companies or the way that UX is practiced, but still kind of maintain somewhat tangentially in that world. Yeah. And so when ABG came along, I was like, oh, this is not something I never thought that I would create take a passion project that I'd done with friends, and also in the media space that was all very kind of new to me, media and entertainment. So that was definitely, I think this is something that's like beyond, it's not even something I would have like dreamt up, right? But otherwise, like when I look forward to, when I kind of like feel like I'm ready to enter this next decade of my life, and I am stopped, at least maybe it's a momentary like period that I'm going through, but I'm trying to not set like, these are like the goals that I have and things that I want to accomplish and blah, blah, blah. I think I want to be like an open book now as I enter into the next decade. And maybe that's also just a bit of me shedding more and more that like 20-year-old Janet who was so like hyper focused on like being type A and like, I have to do my to-do list and like my goal list and having things accomplished. Like I think it's still in me but I want it to happen more organically and less in this like force and push way.
I can take lessons from you.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
I mean, how about for you when you think forward now into the next, like as you kind of live out the rest of your 30s, are there things that you want to do, or the way that, how are you looking at like life goals, I guess, in your 30s?
I know for sure in my 30s, I want to have a baby. Like I definitely want, like the next step for me is like that phase.
Baby, yeah.
Like family, getting married and having a baby. That's like really on my list. The thing right now, the other part of me, actually I have like other goals, but like, spend more time with my family. I think in terms of like myself and my identity, that's like honestly the kind of the most scary thing that I'm going through right now is I don't know who I'm going to become. Yeah, yeah. And because I think the move has like just rocked me. Yeah. That I feel like I don't know who to be anymore. Yeah. Like I know my essence, but I think it's kind of like, again, like I mentioned, like you pursued your passion, you're here, but now what? I'm at the now what. I'm like, I don't really know now what. Yeah, yeah. And I think right now in my 30s, I hope to feel the hunger, the fire to some degree that I felt in my 20s. Because I think we had this convo, and then I was asking, I was like, does that just go away? Like after you did all that in your 20s, is it forever gone? Right. Or can it be reignited somehow? And I truly hope deep down that the fire and the flame comes back
Yeah.
And maybe it's a softer flame, but it's still there. And I don't want to be someone that just cruises.
Yeah.
I still want to grow in my 30s and be like the best version of myself, but I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
I still want the Mel essence though. Like I still think I'm going to be me, but to be this new person, I don't know what that is going to look like.
Yeah. That's put very well. And I would say that that's kind of, I guess, like similar to my mindset of being just open to things, because I do feel like it's another brink of like another shift and another change, right?
Yeah.
And yes, like I'm like, okay, I'm okay and I'm welcoming things. But I think in our past conversations, I also have periods where I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing or what's happening.
Like what's next? I don't know.
What's next? Yeah. But I will say the thing that kind of maybe it's like being on the latter half of the 30s is like, I know I weathered this in my 20s into my 30s or in different periods before. So I have internal confidence that I'll make it through, right? Even though going through it
sucks.
Not that enjoyable.
I know. But thanks for that advice, though. I'll try to remember that.
Yeah.
I do call Janet, like, sometimes, like, crying. I'm like, I don't know what's going on in my life.
And I'm like, I don't either. No, okay.
But to be honest, I think we kind of, like, there's, like, kind of, like, misery loves company kind of thing. So I feel like it does kind of benefit.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that's, like, our dynamic is we can sit here and both acknowledge, like, things are hard or whatever. Yeah. But then also at the end, I feel like there is a wrap up of, like, but you know what? It's going to be okay. It's gonna be okay. You know in the seat of your gut, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, something that we want to share with all of our listeners as well. Is like, if you're going through a time of change right now, it'll be okay. You know, this too shall pass. If you had a vision for how your life would be when you were younger and it's not matching that right now, it is okay for your dreams and, you know, your goals to shift and to change. So yeah, we just encourage you to keep going at it and to find the good in things and to keep pursuing your dreams and be okay if they change.
And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for enjoying that last episode with us. It was so fun to catch up, Mel.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah. And we wanted to take this moment to send a quick shout out to our ABG bestie for this episode, Stephanie Tong Wu.
Hi, Steph.
Thank you so much for supporting us. We love you so much. We appreciate you more than we could say.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the Dear ABG next month.
Yes.
Thank you.